What happened?
We was in an explosion. We was in the lobby and the third explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
What was it like? What was it like?
Horrible.
It's like hell. You don't want to know.
The whole building just collapsed on us inside the lobby.
Was that a secondary explosion?
Yes, it was.
That was the
Yeah, definitely secondary explosion. We was inside waiting to go upstairs, and on our way upstairs, the whole fucking plane blew. And we just collapsed on everybody inside the lobby.
Similar to the first tower coming down, secondary?
I don't know about the first one, but I know the second it was terrible. Then there was a third one too after that one.
Third explosion after that?
That's right. Everybody was inside the building waiting to go upstairs, and they just let loose. Everything just let loose inside the building.
So what you told me is that there was the plane or whatever hit the building, then a secondary explosion.
It was like 3 explosions after that. We came in after the fire. We came when the fire was going on already. We was in the staging area inside the building, waiting to go upstairs. Then they exploded. The whole lobby collapsed on the lobby inside.
And it's just mayhem after that?
Just man, everybody tried to work their way out.
Just trying to help all the brothers get out.
A lot of people trapped inside.
I was sitting in the Brooklyn Navy Yard across from Brooklyn. We watched the first explosion. As we're watching the buildings, I saw a black, very large airplane fly right into the second building. It came out of the south, right in front of our eyes. Just, it was so surreal, like a movie set.
Second and third explosions also, right?
We were in the building for the third one. It collapsed. I was on this drive here for the other one.
People don't understand. There may be more. Any one of these fucking buildings can blow up. This ain't done yet.
This is on top of this. This couldn't be no worse than this. Couldn't be nothing no more worse than this. You're in the building trying to help people, and it's exploding on the inside the building. So I don't think it can get any worse than this.
Yeah, here's one of the guys who can tell you I'm okay, all right? Here, hold on. You want to call your mother or something?
To be right now.
You gotta get back from here. I know that. You gotta get back. All right?
I know.
Don't worry about me. You need to make calls right now. All right.
Hours after the attack, many smaller explosions rumbled through downtown.
Because once the tower fell, you heard boom, 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 boom.
And we heard this boom, boom, boom.
They were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down.
So it was like boom, 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 like that.
And then it started to sound like firecrackers. Crack, 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 crack. And we looked up, and the second tower was coming down.
There were numerous secondary explosions taking place in that building. There were continuous explosions.
She's been there a long time.
Arthur Del Bianco is one of the lucky few, able to tell a tale of survival from a hospital bed.
All of a sudden, it was like bang, 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 like bullet shots. And then all of a sudden, 3 tremendous explosions. And everything started coming down.
Del Bianco was at work in the doomed trade towers when they were attacked.
The force just pushed us to the ground. We were pushed up against marble slabs and other people and glass and the smoke. We were buried in that stuff.
He made it out with a broken leg and today was reunited with his wife.
We're hearing a number of large booms coming from that area. We can only guess what is going on.
I got an eyewitness who said there was an explosion on floor 7-8. 7-8. We just had another explosion. Warren Street because of the secondary explosion. We've got numerous people covered with dust from the secondary explosion. And we got another explosion on the tower, 1013 down with 2 has had a major explosion and what appears to be a complete collapse surrounding the entire area. Who's involved in the secondary explosion?
Very high, and the lobby looked as though a bomb had exploded there. All the glass was taken out. There were 10-foot by 10-foot marble panels that were once walls. They were loose from the wall of the Trade Center.
I went around by the freight elevator and I could see it was just blown. It was just a giant 30th floor. We hear another explosion.
I think a bomb went off in the lobby first, then a plane hit the building. But then another plane hit the other building. But when I was coming through the doors on the other side of the Trade Center, either they blew the lobby up or something, because it blew the glass out of the doors and knocked us all down, and I got smoke and everything on me. I just feel a little shook up because I got blasted, so I'm just trying to, I want a drink of water. They don't have any water now.
Can you tell me what happened? What'd you see?
I saw windows coming out of the building and the ceiling falling on the floor where I was walking. That's when we started up heading for the exit. And
then we got downstairs.
We got to the first floor from
all the way to the
82nd
lobby,
floor.
and all of a sudden there was this big explosion. I don't know if
everything went
just like what you just seen. That's what we went through before we came out of the building. Then when we get out the building, then another smoke cloud came. Better go for that smoke cloud again. Mom, I just want you to know I'm all right.
The ladies that are with me were in the World Trade Center in the first building and escaped through the lobby where they believe there was a bomb in the lobby.
We ran down the steps to the lobby. There was no lobby. Everything was torn up. And even the turnstile was burnt and was sticking up, and they just told us to run.
My boss ran out of the office. He said one thing, run. Everybody just ran. And we ran down the stairs. They told us to come back up the stairs. And we were like, come back up the stairs, are you crazy? So we continued down the stairs. We came outside in the lobby. There was no lobby. The lobby was totally gone.
Did you see other people?
People. There was a woman there with her face blown off. And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby. There was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first. And a couple of seconds in the first plane.
Yeah, hi. I am just about between 5 and 10 blocks north of the actual site of where those two towers have come down. We're obviously having a bit of trouble right now maintaining our location because we just heard one more explosion. That's about the fourth one we've heard. The police are telling us they're either car bombs or they are simply cars that have overheated so much that they're exploding. But every time one of those happens, there's a flurry of activity.
It looks like a ghost town. There are federal agents with guns standing outside the federal buildings, clearing people out. The only thing left in the street are people's shoes as they ran out of their shoes to escape the fire bombs and the explosion.
This is actually, we believe, debris from one of the planes that hit one of the towers on the World Trade Center. The FBI is here, as you can see. They had roped this area off. They were taking photographs and securing this area just prior to that huge explosion that we all heard and felt.
Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
This is Nicholas.
Hi, Nicholas. I'm sorry. Nicholas, you're on live, WB11 Morning News. Can you just tell us what you are seeing and witnessing, and where are you?
I'm in my house right now. I'm looking out the window. After the first explosion, I was just looking at the first tower, and I was just like, wow, you know, I was staring at it for a few minutes. And then I seen the second airplane. It was kind of close up to the building, and it looked like it really did know which way it wanted to go, and it crashed into the second Twin Tower building. It caused a massive explosion, and I was just like, it was just completely stunning. I'm still hearing like little explosions all around, like around my block, but I don't know what's really going on. But it was definitely a second airplane.
What kind of explosions are you hearing? Do you know?
Just little like dooms. I don't know if maybe that could be like results from the building, but
right. Nicholas, can you just tell us exactly where you're located? Obviously, you're not in. Where are you in the vicinity of the World Trade Center?
Well, I'm in the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
Rick Sanchez has been there throughout this morning for us. Rick, tell us where you are and what the latest is.
Well, I'm in that area, if you're familiar with this area, of where West Broadway and Hudson come together, right at Chambers. That would put us about a block and a half away from the site of where the explosion was. That area has just been evacuated because police have found what they describe as a suspicious device, and they fear that it might be something that could lead to another explosion. Obviously, there's a real sense of caution here on the part of police. I spoke with some police officials moments ago, Chris, and they told me that they have reason to believe that one of the explosions at the World Trade Center, aside from the ones that may have been caused by the impact of the plane with the building, may have been caused by a van that was parked in the building that may have had some type of explosive device in it. So their fear is that there may have been explosive device planted either in the building or in the adjacent area.
The chief of safety of the fire department of New York City told me that shortly after 9 o'clock he had roughly 10 alarms, roughly 200 men in the building trying to effect rescues of some of those civilians who were in there, and that basically he received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could, but he said that there was another explosion which took place, and then an hour after the first hit here, with the first crash that took place, he said, there was another explosion that took place in one of the towers here. So obviously, according to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building. One of the secondary devices he thinks that took place after the initial impact he thinks may have been on the plane that crashed into one of the towers. The second device he speculates, was probably planted in the building. So that's what we have been told by Albert Terry, who is the Chief of Safety for the New York City Fire Department. He told me that just moments ago.
My name is Daenerys Bonega. I was walking to work and all of a sudden I see a jet crash into the first tower, and 2 minutes later an explosion, which a whole bunch of people, including myself, fell on this side of the sidewalk. And then I was standing there for like about 8 minutes later, and a second plane just crashed and exploded and hit the other building. Now, as you see, it's just the second tower fell. It's crazy. This is unbelievable. This is scary. I don't even know how to get home now.
We've heard reports of secondary explosions after the aircraft impacted, whether in fact there wasn't something else at the base of the towers that in fact were the coup de grace to bring them to the ground.
We want to go back to Marcia Kramer, who's in the newsroom, for a further update. Marcia?
Well, we have a number of updates. Number one, CNN is now reporting that there was a third explosion at the World Trade Center, probably an explosion from the ground that caused World Trade Center 1 to collapse on top of itself. Again, there was a third explosion. It is unclear what caused it, whether it was a bomb or whether the first plane that crashed into the tower had somehow been booby-trapped with a bomb that was timed to explode later after the crash had occurred. But CNN is reporting that there was a third explosion that caused World Trade Center 1 to collapse within itself and then collapse on other surrounding buildings.
I was standing at the corner of Barclay Street and Washington Street, which is about 1 block, and it's in the canyons around the World Trade Center, and it looked like a bomb went off, and a fireball must have shot right up the street because everything on the street was completely devastated. Vehicles were burnt out, windows were blown out. There's just debris from superstructures of buildings everywhere. I spoke with one firefighter who had been home this morning watching on television, as a lot of people probably were watching, and he was actually out on medical leave and saw it and got a call to come in and responded, and got here after the towers had collapsed, but was in the process of crawling in under that footbridge I was mentioning to pull out a fallen comrade. And his comrade was a firefighter, was trapped about 500 feet in under some debris down West Street, and he turned around and said he saw a police officer walking with him carrying a 9mm pistol, and he asked him what he was doing, and he said that that there were people in the area that were planting bombs after the planes had flown into the tower, that the bombs apparently, and this is just going on what one firefighter told me, police believe that there were bombers that were in the area after the planes hit the towers planting bombs, and that may have been what caused the further devastation. Are you still with me?
Yes, we're listening to you, Joe. It's just unbelievable what you're telling us.
Last explosion was something, because now there's a lot of police activity and sirens and more smoke rising from the ground, new smoke. So there was some kind of additional explosion, but I don't know what it was. Definitely. Smoke was rising from the ground. Maybe it was a federal building or something like that. Okay, sweetie, I'll call you later.
I try to say people, the moment we heard a big explosion coming down, everything just went black. Everything came down, glass are popping, and people got hurt, stuff went on top of them, and it was a big explosion, and everything got dark, real dark, like snow. You can see behind me, oh, this is not snow, this is all from the building. It was a terrible nightmare.
I was in the basement of the elevator. All of a sudden, it blew up. We heard a crash. The elevator opened up, The guy came out burning. I grabbed him. His skin was falling off. I dragged him out. I pulled him out of the parking lot and gave him to EMS.
Folks, back it up. Back it up. Kenny?
Johanneman.
Spell your name.
Johannemann.
And you were working there?
Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement. Came down. All of a sudden, the elevator blew up. Smoke. I dragged the guy out. His skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out and I helped him out to the ambulance.
Thank you.
Right.
Big boom. Come down the steps. Everything fine until we got to the basement, and then everything just fell in. I got trapped in there when another guy crawled out. Kept getting hit in the head. Had bags rolled around. Finally, we clawed our way out over the rubble.
Yeah.
Come on down. We did all right.
All right, way to be, Tom. Let's go.
Everybody talks about what the new Trade Center is going to look like, but I'm telling you right now, the old Trade Center was the most beautiful thing in the world. It was a city in its own, and they made it that way. Those people that worked there made it that way.
For 7 years, 37-year-old Philip Morelli was a construction worker inside the Trade Center. The Queens native says he loved his job at the Twin Towers.
And there was always construction going on in the World Trade Center. There's a lot of floors. Between the two buildings, there was 110, so that's 220. And then you had 9 floors in building 4, 5, and 6. So there was always something going on, and we were always there.
And Phil was there the morning of September 11th. As always, he was on the site bright and early.
I got in at 6 o'clock in the morning. I went downstairs to, you know what I mean, we usually, shanty is where we all dress, and, you know what I mean, we have coffee in the morning. I went down there, and as the guys were coming in, everybody's talking and, you know what I mean, laughing, talking about the night, the day before, the night before, who's talking about this, who's going to do this, who's going to do that.
At 8:30, he says he was headed to level B4 in Tower 1, 4 stories below ground.
I go downstairs, the foreman tells me to go to remove the containers. As I'm walking by the main freight car of the building, in the corridor, that's when I got blown. I mean, the impact of the explosion, of whatever happened, it threw me to the floor, and that's when everything started happening. It knocked me right to the floor. You didn't know what it was. Of course, you're assuming something just fell over in the loading dock, something very heavy, something very big. You don't know what happened, and all of a sudden you just felt the floor moving, and you get up, and the walls. And then, you know what I mean, now I'm hearing that the main freight car, the elevators, you know what I mean, fell down. So I was right near the main freight car, so I assumed what that was. Then, you know what I mean, you heard that coming towards you. I was racing, I was going towards the bathroom. All of a sudden, I opened the door, I didn't know it was a bathroom, and all of a sudden a big impact happened again. And all the ceiling tile was falling down, the light fixtures were falling, swinging out of the ceiling. And I come running out the door, and everything, the walls were down, and now I started running towards the parking lots.
Nearly 100 floors below where the first plane hit, Phil felt the devastating impact. But 4 levels below ground, he had no idea terrorists had done it on purpose.
What did you think was going on?
I just thought something, because I know that the loading dock is on B1, that's 3 floors above me. I just assumed that a car or something exploded on B1, or something got delivered and something big and heavy fell over. You just knew it was something big, because, you know, I can't even imagine living in San Francisco or earthquakes, but when the floor is moving underneath you and everything is just happening and smoke and people screaming, then I never knew until when I got outside the building and I was running down the west side. That was the only time I ever heard about planes hitting the building.
But before he got out of the building, he faced obstacles underground.
As I ran into the parking lots, you know what I mean, everybody screaming. I actually helped somebody get to a staircase that had a broken leg. There was a lot of smoke down there. There was a lot of people screaming. People came with us running up the ramps. We wanted to get help for the people that couldn't move down there. And as we were running up the ramps, and, you know, it's not like a regular mall that you're going straight up. You have to go, you know, you got to go clear across the whole from 1 to 2 World Trade Center. You know what I mean? That's the way you got to run. And then all of a sudden it happened all over again. Building 2 got hit. And then, again, I don't know that. I just know something else hit us to the floor. Right in the basement, you felt it. Walls were caving in. Everything that was going on. I mean, I know of people that got killed in the basement. I know of people that got broken legs in the basement. People that got reconstructive surgery because the walls hit them in the face. And I know I love seeing everybody every day that survived it and was there. And I just hear everybody's story. and it was terrible. No matter where you were in that building, there was no safe place to be except to get out, help as many people as you can, and just try to get out, because there was devastation everywhere.
The 37-year-old says he lost a lot of friends in the building, colleagues, Port Authority officers, and clients. That's why he's helping to rebuild. Currently, he is a part of a crew repairing the Verizon building, heavily damaged in the collapse. In his pocket, he carries around a little piece of motivation that keeps him going. A Cub Scout letter that he received inside a pair of gloves donated to the recovery effort at Ground Zero.
And I went to put my hands in the glove, and I took out this letter that was inside the gloves, and it says, "Your hands are doing what ours cannot."
He spent 5 years working in the Trade Center complex and was in the basement of Tower 1 when the first plane hit, sending a fireball down the elevator shaft 10 feet away.
All of a sudden, the whole floor, the whole building just rocked. It just rocked and threw you, and just threw you. You didn't know what happened. I get up, and all you hear, now all you hear is, now you feel is heat. You hear heat. It blew me going into the doors of the parking lot. Then all of a sudden the heat, and it just came blowing through, and the heat that you felt was so terrible, and the explosion that happened, it was knocking down the walls, the ceilings were falling, the block walls were caving in, steel doors just looked like paper. Then there's silence. Then all there was silence, and then after a couple of seconds, you're getting up off your knees, and now you hear silence, and it's a dead calm of dust and smoke, and all of a sudden you hear people slowly, somebody starts screaming, someone starts yelling, someone starts saying, you're hearing help, you're hearing please, you're hearing one at a time you're hearing it. And people you see burnt, and everybody's hurt, and you're just getting, and it's smoke, and you're just going over the building too, and you just feel like you're just going to get up and just, I know the building, you just feel like you're just going to get up the staircase, everybody's going to go up the staircase and leave. All of a sudden, here we go again, building 2 gets hit. I couldn't get into building 2, if the doors, nothing would open, it just felt like something, like compressed it was strange, it was just, you couldn't even push doors. We're running up the ramps, and things elevate, you hear elevators coming, screeching. It's like a missile coming towards you. When you hear a 10,000-pound, 20,000, 40,000-pound elevator coming down the shaft, now I don't know what that is. I just think now you're getting invaded. You're just being invaded. Everything's just coming at you. The world is coming to an end. You don't know what's going on. You just keep hearing these things shooting down the shaft. You're hearing people screaming. Then all of a sudden you don't hear them screaming. You know the wall. You know they just died. Whatever was over there just died. It was just silence. And then we come running up and down. We're running up and down the ramps, because there's ramps and there's long runs. And then finally, we finally see a panic door. We're coming outside, and it's the West Side Highway. People, everybody's screaming. No, you don't even know you have no concept of what's going on above you. All I know, I'm just speaking for what I know, is there's 110 floors above my head that all you see is people that you don't know, but they jumped, people that jumped. And you're seeing people that things happen to, crushed cars. You're seeing everything that happened, flames of fire coming down. Now you're saying to yourself, you know what I mean, do you stay here or do you just make a run for it? You don't even know what the hell to do. And we all made a run for it, and all of a sudden we're running down the West Side Highway. And now you think you died 3 times. Now all of a sudden you're out on the West Side Highway after all this is over, and then people are screaming, the building's coming down. And then all of a sudden you feel the rumbling of the floor down the West Side Highway. You just think something's gonna fall on you. You just think you're gonna die. I still cannot believe those 2 buildings are not there. That day when I saw dust, I was hoping to God when that dust was over, I was hoping to God that buildings were still standing there. And I stood there until the dust, you know what I mean? But then all of a sudden the dust started going one direction, started going the other direction. And we were full of dust, and we were crying, and all of a sudden the buildings weren't there no more.
there was an explosion. We're on the support floor, which is a basement. Guy came in running. All his skin was out of his body.
Oh my God!
All his skin was out of his body. We took him out. We ran out. We heard a lot of rumbling. I went back in. There was a lot of smoke. We went up like the stairs with the Port Authority police to start rescuing people. A lot of people were coming out, but there was a lot of people that stayed there. We brought a lot of people on wheelchairs and a lot of people on gurneys, all people that couldn't make it because there was no elevator service. The elevator went out. While we were there, we heard an explosion, and it was on the radio. We were told that it was a 65th floor collapse. So at that moment, we couldn't continue going up. As it is, when I came out, there were still firemen there before the building collapsed. There were people on the 34th floor, on the 36th floor, 37th floor, and 39th floor. And we're talking about 30 firemen
that were up on those floors.
That were on those floors
when it collapsed.
When it collapsed. So I don't know what happens to them. I know the officer that was helping me. We don't know what happened to him. This officer Lim from the Port Authority Police. We have no contact with him. I've been looking for him. While we came out on the floor, on the lobby, there were still people on the floor, dead on the floor. There was a person encrusted on the floor. That's how big the impact was. As soon as we came out, we hear that the building was falling. We started running. We went inside, right under the fire trucks because there was nowhere to go. Me and another like 3 firemen, we went in on one of the fire trucks, and everything fell. Everything fell on top of it. So we almost get crushed over there. We were taken out of the truck.
Well, tell me a little bit about the emotional impact that this has had on you. Witnessing what you did.
I was on when the bombing happened years ago, and this is the worst I ever seen. Doesn't compare at all. We're talking about the worst thing I ever seen in my life. Nothing compares to it. And when I look up and I see that the building is gone, it's just like I'm totally in shock. There's no way to describe it. And the kind of people that probably still up there, was still up there, it just kills me because I know they couldn't make it. I worked the whole tower from the 107th floor all the way down, and I know they couldn't make it.
Do you know anything about the cause of the explosions that brought the 2 buildings down yet? Was it caused by the planes or by something else?
We believe that it was caused by the after effects of the planes hitting the buildings. We don't know of an additional explosion after that.
Area, you should leave the area. You should evacuate the area and get away from the scene. Right now, what police have to determine is whether that explosion was caused from the initial impact of the plane or whether it was something that was exploded on the ground. Generally speaking, for a building to collapse in on itself like that, it would seem to indicate, obviously this is just early speculation, but it would seem to indicate that there could have been an explosion, a bomb planted on the ground that would make the building collapse within itself.
Just before 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, one of the World Trade Center towers collapses. 30 minutes later, the second tower also crumbles. Then a 4th explosion rocks the debris.
I hope I live. I hope I live. She's coming down on me. Here it comes. I'm getting behind a car. There's all these noises. I don't know what it is.
Again, speculation, but another thing that strikes me as I look at these pictures is, if indeed the plane entered the building from the right side of, as you are looking at it now,
right.
If it hit the face that is on the right side, right there, where the jagged edge sloping down is, we have flames almost on the other side of the building, which indicates that this was something fairly big, or something that had an awful lot of momentum
to go through it,
to go, deeply into the building. But again,
This one woman who was speaking to WNBC, again our NBC affiliate in New York, was saying that it did not appear to be a big jetliner. She did see the plane, she says. She called it a small jet plane. Obviously not an expert. When prodded by the anchor, she continued to say it did not appear to be a twin-engine plane, something larger than that. Again, whether it was something as large as a 737, we still obviously don't know.
Very difficult to tell. Right. I'll tell you what, our sister station, WNBC, of course, has a great deal of experience covering news events in New York. We're going to go to their coverage for a while.
And, you know, fight it from it. If you're taking a look now, you can see that we've just had another explosion, and that is considerably lower. And is that in the other building? Is that what I'm witnessing?
That apparently does look like it is in the other building at this point.
And that looks to be lower, which means there, you know, obviously there are considerable numbers of stories above that explosion that we just saw. Perhaps we can get another look from one of our sky cams that can take a different angle. Yes, you can tell that it now appears that both buildings are suffering some kind of damage this morning. My colleague Glenn Walker has just joined me here in the studio. And Glenn, I don't know if you've received any other information, but perhaps you can again go over what we do know at this point, which is pretty much visual and what eyewitnesses have told us.
Well, I would hate to speculate, but that was like a completely separate incident right there. I mean, this building has been the subject of terrorist attacks in the past, and I certainly would want to speculate at this time, but that is a separate explosion.
Yes, it is.
In the other building. Now, we have tried to get a hold of the Port Authority, which manages the building. We haven't been able to get an answer. We did call MTA, and the MTA says the subway service, as of right now, is continuing, so that's not a problem, because it's obviously very below, but I imagine that will change very quickly after what we just witnessed. That was a dramatic explosion. Again, it was in the separate tower than the one to where the plane just crashed into about a half hour ago.
Yes, and again, there was no sign of any airplane close.
We're interrupting Channel 4. Maria Bartiromo was in the area. You all saw, if you were watching, the second explosion.
Some sketchy information here that another explosion, a fourth explosion out the World Trade Center has gone off. One doesn't know if that's an ancillary thing because of what already happened, or an additional explosion of some kind outside of that.
Earlier, the second tower of the World Trade Center collapsing. About 8 minutes after that, a fourth explosion at the World Trade Center, perhaps at the base of the building.
After the first building exploded and went to move out of the way, there was just walking through this debris. It was like all volcanic ash. Just everything was coated in it, and
you're covered.
I'm covered, and just single pieces of paper. You're walking through, you're seeing briefcases, you're seeing shoes, you're seeing just, I mean, like I said, single pieces of paper with people's handwriting that a whole building explodes and they're left unscathed, just sitting there flapping. You know, I mean.
Michael, thank you so much for spending time with us and telling us what you saw.
Falling from the sky, right? Yeah! All of a sudden you hear explosion, and then you could see the building starting to collapse, and then everybody runs up the street.
When the second tower of the Trade Center collapsed, 8 minutes later, another explosion at the World Trade Center. Apparently, bombs may have been placed at the base of those buildings. The mayor only saying he did not believe those blasts after the initial impact had anything to do with a gas leak. That was an initial report from the mayor. It has been, again, just over 7 hours since this began.
In New York, Alan Dobbs-Frank joins us on the phone in Lower Manhattan. Alan?
Aaron, just 2 or 3 minutes ago, there was yet another collapse or explosion. I'm now out of sight. A Good Samaritan has taken me in on Duane Street. But at 11:15, there was another collapse or explosion following the 10:30 collapse of the second tower. And a firefighter who rushed by estimated that 50 stories went down. The street filled with smoke. It was like a forest fire roaring down a canyon. Now, as I think Patty Sabga and others have told you, all of Manhattan is covered, downtown Manhattan is covered with thick white ash and building material.
It's none available. We also saw some police officers coming down this street a little bit earlier on wearing full gas masks, almost like riot gear. They were heading into that area. What's so frightening at this time is that we've heard 3 explosions since both towers collapsed. I stopped another police officer. He was a New York City police officer who was working traffic in this area to ask him if he'd heard over his radio transmissions whether in fact those were car bombs, as one officer had told me, or whether he'd heard anything else. He said he thought they were just residual collapse sounds and explosions that were just from the original collapse, but we haven't had confirmation on that. The first officer that I did get the information from that was a car bomb looked as though he was an inspector, plain clothes of some sort. He had a radio as well and a cell phone. It was walking right past me down this area, and I walked with him as he was talking on the cell phone. I said, "What was it?" And he said, "Car bomb." And when I asked him to elaborate, he said, "No time, no time," and he continued to walk forward.
Listen, the 4-1 should have taken a couple of companies that they were leaving back to us, but we're stuck in the tunnel. So that, they might be busy doing that. Check that out, all right? Listen, the 4-1 should have taken a couple of companies that they were leaving back to us, but we're stuck in the tunnel. So that, they might be busy doing that. Check that out, all right? Listen, the 4-1 should have taken a couple of companies that they were leaving back to us, but we're stuck in the tunnel. So that, they might be busy doing that. Check that out, all right?
Credit, I guess.
Michael, stay with us if you would. We want to go back to Marcia Kramer, who's in the newsroom, for a further update. Marcia?
Well, we have a number of updates. Number one, CNN is now reporting that there was a 3rd explosion at the World Trade Center, probably an explosion from the ground that caused World Trade Center 1 to collapse on top of itself. Again, there was a 3rd explosion. It's unclear what caused it, whether it was a bomb or whether the first plane that crashed into the tower had somehow been booby-trapped with a bomb that was timed to explode later after the crash had occurred. But CNN is reporting that there was a 3rd explosion that caused World Trade Center 1 to collapse within itself and then collapse on other surrounding buildings.
He spent 5 years working in the Trade Center complex and was in the basement of Tower 1 when the first plane hit, sending a fireball down the elevator shaft 10 feet away.
All of a sudden, the whole floor, the whole building just rocked. It just rocked and threw you, and just threw you. You didn't know what happened. I get up, and all you hear, now all you hear is, now you feel is heat. You hear heat. It blew me going into the doors of the parking lot. Then all of a sudden the heat, and it just came blowing through, and the heat that you felt was so terrible, and the explosion that happened, it was knocking down the walls, the ceilings were falling, the block walls were caving in, steel doors just looked like paper. Then there's silence. Then all there was silence, and then after a couple of seconds, you're getting up off your knees, and now you hear silence, and it's a dead calm of dust and smoke, and all of a sudden you hear people slowly, somebody starts screaming, someone starts yelling, someone starts saying, you're hearing help, you're hearing please, you're hearing one at a time you're hearing it. And people you see burnt, and everybody's hurt, and you're just getting, and it's smoke, and you're just going over the building too, and you just feel like you're just going to get up and just, I know the building, you just feel like you're just going to get up the staircase, everybody's going to go up the staircase and leave. All of a sudden, here we go again. Building 2 gets hit. I couldn't get into building 2. If the doors, nothing would open. Nothing would open. It just felt like something like compressed all the, it was strange. It was just, you couldn't even push doors. We're running up the ramps, and things elevate, you hear elevators coming, screeching. It's like a missile coming towards you. When you hear a 10,000 pound, 20,000, 40,000 pound elevator coming down a shaft, now I don't know what that is. I just think now you're getting invaded. You're just being invaded. Everything's just coming at you. The world is coming to an end. You don't know what's going on. You just keep hearing these things shooting down the shaft. You're hearing people screaming. Then all of a sudden you don't hear them screaming. You know the wall. You know they just died. Whatever was over there just died. It was just silence. And then we come running up and down. We're running up and down the ramps because there's ramps and there's long runs. And then finally, we finally see a panic door. We're coming outside, and it's the West Side Highway. People are everybody's screaming. No, you don't even know you have no concept of what's going on above you. All I know, I'm just speaking for what I know, is there's 110 floors above my head that all you see is people that you don't know, but they jumped, people that jumped, and you're seeing people that things happen to, crushed cars. You're seeing everything that have flames of fire coming down. Now you're saying to yourself, you know what I mean, do you stay here or do you just make a run for it? You don't even know what the hell to do. And we all made a run for it, and all of a sudden we're running down the West Side Highway. And now you think you died 3 times. Now all of a sudden you're out on the West Side Highway after all this is over, and then people are screaming the building's coming down. And then all of a sudden you feel the rumbling of the floor down the West Side Highway. You just think something's gonna fall on you. You just think you're gonna die. I still cannot believe those 2 buildings are not there. That day when I saw dust, I was hoping to God when that dust was over, I was hoping to God that buildings were still standing there. And I stood there until the dust, you know what I mean? But then all of a sudden the dust started going one direction, started going the other direction, and we were full of dust, and we were crying, and all of a sudden the buildings weren't there no more.
He spent 5 years working in the Trade Center complex and was in the basement of Tower 1 when the first plane hit, sending a fireball down the elevator shaft 10 feet away.
All of a sudden, the whole floor, the whole building just rocked. It just rocked and threw you, and just threw you. You didn't know what happened. I get up, and all you hear, now all you hear is, now you feel is heat. You hear heat. It blew me going into the doors of the parking lot. Then all of a sudden the heat, and it just came blowing through, and the heat that you felt was so terrible, and the explosion that happened, it was knocking down the walls, the ceilings were falling, the block walls were caving in, steel doors just looked like paper. Then there's silence. Then all there was silence, and then after a couple of seconds, you're getting up off your knees, and now you hear silence, and it's a dead calm of dust and smoke, and all of a sudden you hear people slowly, somebody starts screaming, someone starts yelling, someone starts saying, you're hearing help, you're hearing please, you're hearing one at a time you're hearing it. And people you see burnt, and everybody's hurt, and you're just getting, and it's smoke, and you're just going over the building too, and you just feel like you're just going to get up and just, I know the building, you just feel like you're just going to get up the staircase, everybody's going to go up the staircase and leave. All of a sudden, here we go again, building 2 gets hit. I couldn't get into building 2, if the doors, nothing would open, it just felt like something, like compressed it was strange. It was just, you couldn't even push doors. We're running up the ramps and things elevate, you hear elevators coming, screeching. It's like a missile coming towards you. When you hear a 10,000 pound, 20,000, 40,000 pound elevator coming down the shaft, now I don't know what that is. I just think now you're getting invaded. You're just being invaded. Everything's just coming at you. The world is coming to an end. You don't know what's going on. You just keep hearing these things shooting down the shaft. You're hearing people screaming. Then all of a sudden you don't hear them screaming. You know the wall. You know they just died. Whatever was over there just died because it was just silence. And then we come running up and down. We're running up and down the ramps because there's ramps and there's long runs. And then finally, we finally see a panic door. We're coming outside, and it's the West Side Highway. People are everybody's screaming. No, you don't even know you have no concept of what's going on above you. All I know, I'm just speaking for what I know, is there's 110 floors above my head that all you see is people that you don't know, but they jumped, people that jumped, and you're seeing people that things happen to, crushed cars. You're seeing everything that have flames of fire coming down. Now you're saying to yourself, you know what I mean, do you stay here or do you just make a run for it? You don't even know what the hell to do. And we all made a run for it, and all of a sudden we're running down the West Side Highway. And now you think you died 3 times. Now all of a sudden you're out on the West Side Highway after all this is over, and then people are screaming the building's coming down. And then all of a sudden you feel the rumbling of the floor down the West Side Highway. You just think something's gonna fall on you. You just think you're going to die. I still cannot believe those 2 buildings are not there. That day when I saw dust,
I was hoping to God when that dust was over, I was hoping to God that buildings were still standing there. And I stood there until the dust, you know what I mean? But then all of a sudden the dust started going one direction, started going the other direction, and we were full of dust, and we were crying, and all of a sudden the buildings weren't there no more.
Dan, I think I was in the second collapse or an explosion right after that, because I was trying to make my way around Stuyvesant High School. I believe that's correct. I'm not a New Yorker. But I was coming toward the World Trade Center looking for CBS crews and asked a firefighter if he saw any. He told me to walk down the middle of the road. All of a sudden, there was a roll, an explosion, and we could see coming at us a ball of flame stories high. He and others screamed, "Run," and I ran. I fell. One of them picked me up. We ran as fast as we could, and then he threw me into the wall of a building and covered me. Forgive me. I am in his debt. You know, Dan, I know firefighters do incredible work all of the time, but this was exceeded anything that I can imagine. He threw me into a wall, covered me with his body. I could feel his heart banging against my back. We were both so sure we were going to die. The flame somehow stopped short of us. But whatever collapsed created, and you saw it in some of that video, Dan, a rain of cinders so thick that you couldn't see this far in front of you and you couldn't breathe. A police officer, and I wish I knew the firefighter's name, a police officer by the name of Brendan Duke grabbed my hand, and he and I tried to find our way through it until we could hit a clearing in the light. What you're seeing on the ground here, Dan, was in the air, and you couldn't see. And again, we thought we were finished. We somehow got to the light. Another firefighter gave me his mask for a moment so I could breathe. And then I made my way somehow through the smoke into the light to our crews. There was a cameraman there whose head was bloody, and he was trying to shoot and set up some of these shots there. The firefighters, the police, the crews, the people. People streamed toward me as I made my way to the Trade Center, sobbing and crying and trying to call home on dead cell phones, but they couldn't get through. There is so much fear out there even now because of gas main leaks. There was a point at which I watched firefighters run. Someone threw me forward. A paramedic truck let me jump inside and drove me halfway. And then a New York City bus driver opened his doors of an empty bus and drove me here to the broadcast center. To all of them, I mean, citizens of New York and have remained amazingly calm but deeply frightened.
But I hear a lot of sirens going in.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
I'm sure you do. And again, your estimation, what type of plane did
Either
did
an
you report
Airbus A320 style or a Boeing 737.
knowledge from? How much time do you have in a pilot
there was
seat?
another
Oh, no. Okay.
explosion.
Explosions, multiple explosions, ladies and gentlemen. We just saw another explosion. Obviously,
We're just watching it again. It's the first time. This is
the other tower, ladies and gentlemen. Another explosion at tower number 2 of the World Trade Center just happened live on our air.
Because I had just gone to it, so I knew that they needed water. And I stood there for a few minutes, and then I don't know how much time went by. All of a sudden, I looked up, and about 20 stories below, at least that's what it looked like to me, about 75 flights up, below the fire, I saw from the corner, boom, 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 boom. Just like 20 straight hits just went down, and then I just saw the whole building just went, and as the bombs were going, people just started running, and I sat there and watched a few of them explode, and then I just turned around, and I just started running for my life, because at that point, World Trade...
It's really a nightmare. Your name, please? Rose Harris. Rose Harris.
Where do you work?
At Goldman Sachs. New York Plaza.
So you're taking a long walk home.
And as we were leaving, there was another explosion down there.
Really fast, and I didn't think of anything, so I kept on walking. All of a sudden, you heard a loud explosion, so we all ran to look, And the first building was a big hole in the side of it, and on the other side went in flames. So we stood there in shock. Everyone screaming. A woman collapsed on me. I had to lay her down on my textbooks. And then before you know it, out of nowhere, the next building blew up.
I was in the basement of the elevator. All of a sudden, it blew up. We heard a crash. The elevator opened up. The guy came out burning. I grabbed him. His skin was falling off. I dragged him out. I pulled him out of the parking lot and gave him to EMS. Everybody else was just going all crazy and nuts. People are jumping out. People flailing, still alive, still jumping out. That's what I saw.
Jeremy, obviously, can you please tell us, I mean, we were watching the the tower go down. Can you please describe to us, on the ground, what did that look like?
I'm not on the ground. I'm on the 26th floor of a building across the way. Right now, you can see nothing outside. When it went off, the second building, you saw an explosion, and then you just saw a humongous cloud of smoke go up, and you saw the building start to fall down, and then you saw the core of the building just start to disintegrate into itself. There's ashes on my terrace everywhere. You can't see a thing. The smell is horrible. I smell smoke everywhere.
Did it look like an implosion that internally, was it that when the plane crashed, I mean, was there another explosion inside that vicinity of that area, almost like we're speculating here, possibly a bomb?
I couldn't. The second building, both buildings were just burning, and they're constantly burning. And then right below the left building, the one without the news tower, the satellite tower, it just looked like an explosion below the where it was burning, and then it just came down.
We should be able to hear what this man is saying now.
Anything else that you saw? Were you there for the second hit by the plane?
About 10 minutes later, the second building went off.
Did you see it?
Yes, I saw it. It just blew up. A big explosion. People started running. It was just chaos everywhere. People jumping out. People just kept jumping and jumping and jumping. And you could still see they were alive because they were flailing around.
The FBI has already stepped in to investigate. It could be possibly a terrorist strike.
It could be. It could be, because the first one went off, and then 10 minutes later, this just blew up out of nowhere.
Hard to think that would just be accidental.
No, I don't think it would be accidental.
Back it up, folks. Back it up. Kenny?
Johanneman.
Spell your name.
Johannemann.
And you were working there?
Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement, came down, all of a sudden the elevator blew up, smoke. I dragged the guy out, his skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out, and I helped him out to the ambulance.
Thank you.
Right?
We heard another explosion, and I'm assuming that's the one that came from the lower level, since there were two. And I said,
right, because it was like 18 minutes apart.
Well, this is the first explosion, and there was a second explosion in the same building. There were two explosions.
Okay.
Federal agencies that were down there do believe that there was some sort of explosive device somewhere else besides the plane's hit.
So they're like, we're standing there telling us the Pentagon's hit. We're listening to a call report, and then the building explodes, and we're seeing it, and it's falling, and it just, the smoke, and it just started coming. Everybody started running. You just had to run.
And there was a loud explosion. They had an explosion.
Where were you when it happened?
Well, I was on my way from B2 to 49th floor, and as I took off, it was a matter of seconds, 5, 6, 7 seconds, I don't know, and there was a loud explosion and the elevator dropped. And when the elevator dropped, was a lot of debris and cables falling on top of the elevator. And I just put my hand over my head and I say, oh God, I'm going to die. But I didn't know what was happening. When the elevator finally stopped, they had an explosion that bring the doors inside the elevator. And I'm sure that was broke my leg. And then they had another explosion on the panel that threw me, against the wall. And I guess I was unconscious for a couple of minutes.
Kenneth, let me take you back to that morning of September 11th. I know you work on the 27th floor for Blue Cross Blue Shield, and you happened to be in the lobby, thankfully, mailing a letter. Tell me what you remember happening.
Well, I walked out the revolving door from the lobby. It's the last door before you get to the outside. And I was going to walk around the building and go up to the Postal Service to get some special stamps. And I had no sooner walked out the door where I heard a whooshing, roaring noise And I look to my left, and I see a friend of mine with terror on his face racing for cover. And then I saw several other people that I didn't recognize also heading for cover. And I looked, I'd heard a boom and the ground tremble. And the next thing I know, I was looking up at the roof, and I'm seeing stuff coming off the roof. So I figured my best bet would be to get back into the building so to avoid the stuff coming off the roof. I no sooner had gone back into the revolving door when all of a sudden it seems like the whole lobby, the door I was in, and everything filled up with a yellowish, brownish, combustible mixture. It didn't really smell any different, but it wasn't, it took so quickly to happen. It was like a tenth of a second, and the next thing I know is a major explosion, of which I'm now thrown back out through both of these, through the revolving door and back outside underneath the overhang where the taxis would come in. I was on fire. I quickly put my shirt out and kind of doused my hair and just started to stagger away as fast as I could.
Hotels in Battery Park City. Jeff Rawson, at about 11:15 or 11:10, was reporting live and said he heard an explosion. We want to get an update on what might be happening down there because that's new smoke rising. Sarah Wallace, I'm sorry, Controller, what are we going to? Okay, we want to go to some of the sound bites and sound from the witnesses. Nope, we're now going. Go ahead, Sarah.
A live news conference right now. The sense of unease was evident here, but stories of miraculous survival continued. These twin sisters, visiting from Alabama and Georgia, met in New York to share their 40th birthday. They were having coffee in the World Trade Center when the first plane struck.
And all of a sudden it sounded like, I don't know where the subway is, but it sounded like a subway collision of bombs. And it was just pounding, boom, 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 boom. And I literally thought the subway had exploded and all the cars were fixing to land on top of us. It was just so loud. And what'd you do?
Cheryl Fiandaca, who was down, literally, you were right next to these buildings when they came down.
Right, we were about 2 blocks away when the second explosion hit, and all we heard was just this small explosion, then you saw a roar of an explosion and all kinds of smoke coming, billowing out, debris falling down, people running, the firefighters and police screaming at everyone to run as the debris was coming down and hitting people. It's just total chaos and incredibly frightening situation down there.
I saw the video that was actually taken right where you were, and people running out and coughing and unable to breathe at all.
Oh, it's unbelievable. There's between the smoke and whatever debris and everything else that's floating through the air, and there's also some concerns that there may be something in the air down there, so people are rolling up their windows, firefighters have their masks on, and they're asking everybody to stay away, although people are still trying to get down there to see what's going on.
No, I know.
It's a very, very scary situation down there.
No, the whole city's on lockdown. People have been asking us, they've been coming up to us saying, are the subways open? No, they're on lockdown. The bridges and tunnels are closed. There's no way to get out of the city except for by foot. And you can see it's kicking up a lot of this dust as all of the emergency vehicles come out of here. People have been asking you as well as I, is this chemical, biological warfare? Do we know? We have no idea. It's just an acrid smell.
Right.
What happened?
Right. We just have no idea at this point. There are a lot of injuries and a lot of problems down there. A lot of firefighters are injured, and we've seen tons of ambulances going by most of the morning. As we've been here watching what's going on. It's just it's an incredible situation. Incredible.
Apocalyptic.
Planned operation. We're going to go right now to our colleague and friend, Christina.
Christina Summers is here, one of our producers here at the station.
Is fine after living through a hellish experience earlier.
Yeah, just when we sort of thought things had calmed down there and what was going to happen happened. I was there right before the collapse, and I was in a store making a phone call, and there was the window display outside, and the door was a window, and all of a sudden this woman just started freaking out, saying, oh my God, and I looked over, and it was just this avalanche of debris that looked like it was just coming straight at you like a tidal wave, and we didn't know what to do.
Did you think you had to try to outrun it? Was all you could do, correct?
No, we were looking for a back door. We were in this store just trying to figure, is there a back door or something? Because it was coming through the front.
Coming through into the building.
Coming into the store.
We should also mention that you said that the subway, as far as the dust and debris went, the subway apparently was not a safe place to be as well.
No, we got out of there, and it took about 3 blocks before we could see anything because it was pitch black, and all you saw were these huge flakes of things just falling down, and I had it all in my eyes too,
Your
so
eyes
I
are
could
still
barely
red
see.
and running,
yeah,
I can see that.
They're itchy, and my skin has been itchy. And then I walked past a subway station, and when after 3 blocks we could finally see, and I saw these people coming out of the subway, and they were worse off than we were. It looked like a bag of cement had just been poured all over them. And I was asking around what happened, because we didn't know. Was there a bomb in our building? We were right across the street from a federal building, so I assumed that's what got hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the woman from the subway goes, no, the bomb was in the subway. We all thought we were right in the center of the bomb because nobody had an idea what was going on.
As I reached our truck, I watched everyone around me scrambling for cover, uncertain after the second blast what could happen next. And then just as the smoke cleared amidst debris and black soot falling from the sky, what sounded like a sonic boom as the first and then the second tower tumbled. It was close to 20 minutes later before we could see anything. Our truck both blanketed and filled with a blinding, dense black powder.
In each tower, the chief of safety of the fire department of New York City told me that shortly after 9 o'clock, he had roughly 10 alarms, roughly 200 men in the building trying to effect rescues of some of those civilians who were in there, and that basically he received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could, but he said that there was another explosion which took place. And then an hour after the first hit here, with the first crash that took place, he said, there was another explosion that took place in one of the towers here. So obviously, according to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building. One of the secondary devices he thinks that took place after the initial impact he thinks may have been on the plane that crashed into one of the towers. The second device he speculates, was probably planted in the building. So that's what we have been told by Albert Turry, who is the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department. He told me that just moments ago. Yes, I can, Matt. If there is a war against terrorism that started, rather ongoing right now, it started here at about 8:45 this morning. As you described, a big hole in the skyline at the southern end, the southern tip of Manhattan Island, where the 2 World Trade Center towers have stood for the last 25 years, 110 stories high. They are no longer there. Just moments ago, I spoke to the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department, who was obviously one of the first people here on the scene after those 2 planes were crashed into the side, we assume, of the World Trade Center towers, which used to be behind me over there. Chief Albert Turry told me that he was here just literally 10 or 15 minutes after the events that took place this morning. That is the first crash. He said that at one point he had roughly 10 alarms. That would equate to roughly 200 to 225 New York City firefighters who were in the building. This was after the crash, trying to rescue civilians who were in there. Now, earlier this morning on the Today Show, we spoke to the director of the World Trade Center. He said that at that hour of the morning, you could have upwards of 10,000 people in each of those towers. That would be 20,000 people total in each tower. The chief of safety of the Fire Department of New York City told me that shortly after 9 o'clock, he had roughly 10 alarms, roughly 200 men in the building trying to effect rescues of some of those civilians who were in there, and that basically he received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could, but he said that there was another explosion which took place, and then an hour after the first hit here, with the first crash that took place, he said, there was another explosion that took place in one of the towers here. So obviously, according to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building. One of the secondary devices he thinks that took place after the initial impact he thinks may have been on the plane that crashed into one of the towers. The second device he speculates, was probably planted in the building. So that's what we have been told by Albert Turry, who is the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department. He told me that just moments ago. Now, we are continuing to hear explosions. Here downtown, and what we've been told by some of the fire officials is that there are some gas lines that occasionally are exploding down there, because obviously, as you can imagine, there are a lot of open gas lines down in the southern part of Manhattan where the World Trade Center towers used to be. As far as the situation right here, basically what we have are hundreds of New York City firefighters and other New York City rescue units who are massed here. There is a cordon just down there. We are not sure, to be honest, if some rescue workers have tried to go beyond that point as yet. When we spoke to the head of the Port Authority Police, that would be the organization that is in charge of the World Trade Center building itself, the Port Authority Police chief told us that they were at that point, about, I'd say 40 minutes ago, about to make a decision on whether or not it was safe to send emergency workers back in there. But the bottom line is that according to the chief of safety of the New York City Fire Department, he says that he probably lost a great many men in those secondary explosions, and he said that there were literally hundreds, if not thousands of people in those two towers when the explosions took place. He said everything above the 60th floor was extremely difficult to get to, as you can imagine.
Pat Dawson.
Back to you.
Pat Dawson, thanks very much. We have some...
Bomb in the building, start clearing out. Sorry, you said there's a bomb? What'd you say? Bomb in the building, start clearing out. Got it.
This is what rescue crews are dealing with. Unbelievable destruction, almost unbearable carnage.
A whole lot of things. The building was totally demolished. The bottom part of the building was in flames. The top part of the building was totally gone. And the second building collapsed later on in the afternoon. Everyone ran for cover, and it's about how it ended. It was totally devastating.
These men and women bravely dealing with that devastation that is now ingrained, burned into our history.
And at 10:30, the second tower of the World Trade Center also collapsed. About 8 minutes later, there was a fourth explosion at the World Trade Center. Since then, the White House, the State Department, the United Nations, and the Sears Tower in Chicago have all been evacuated.
Everybody go home! Take the day off! They're blowing up the building! It's terrorist attacks! It's terrorist attacks! Go home! They're blowing up the building! Get out of the street! Go home!
Explosions this morning, an explosion near the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C.
The steel was weak, so for the response to the steel up, locked down like that. That's what I said.
That's what's going to happen to that building right there.
We felt it vibrate in the face. If we were the face of the bomb.
More film? Huh? Getting more film?
Yeah. Just in case.
Yes.
The whole building? The whole building.
It was awful.
I thought the building was that I just saw flames coming out of the floor.
Yeah. I never occurred to me this would collapse.
Let's go.
Gas leak.
Mr. Mayor, there were reports of gas explosion related to this. Are you aware of that? There was a gas leak or possible explosion.
We don't believe it. We don't believe that's the case.
Does he have a reason?
I just heard a bunch of people ran off from the river, said there's another plane coming, and then I heard another bang, but I don't know what's going on. So, gas leak.
The gas leak coming down. You know what's that?
Train station, everything.
When most buildings began to be evacuated and people were going out. At that point, a lot of people tried to run over, not a lot, but many people that I saw tried to run over to the World Trade Center, telling police, I know someone in there. I have a loved one who's in there. And they were prevented from going in that direction. But there were many tears, and there was an awful lot of anger. And then, with subsequent explosions, and when a portion of World Trade 1 hit the ground, there was an enormous burst, a cloud of smoke and debris that started moving north. We were north of the building, downwind, and that's where the debris started blowing. And waves of people started moving up.
What do you think of this?
It's crazy. It's terrible. How can just believe that the building was gone?
Did you see it collapse?
Yeah, no, nothing. Yeah.
Just went.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, it looked like.
Just smoking.
Yeah, it looked like you see in the movies when they demolish a building.
Exactly.
That's how it went down.
How did he? The bone is stronger. The bone in here.
Oh yeah. The plane.
Maybe very strong. How can destroy this big building in here? This bone is very strong.
They're shooting. They're driving around shooting. They arrested 2 Iranians. Oh, shit. They're shooting. I'm serious. It's like getting should have saw me running.
I told you. Did you hear that they have a bus? They caught a bus, like, a buck or a truck.
A van full of bombs, right?
Oh no! Somebody said there was a truck that had a picture of the World Trade Center with the plane flying into it. They caught it.
3 at the same time. Chicago, Pentagon, and Chicago, the Pentagon, and that got hit at the same time.
Well, yeah, it's obviously orchestrated, but how you declare war on something you can't see?
Put me in office, I'll show you.
They got detected still.
Put me in office and I'll show you how to declare war on something you can't see.
I know who do. Yeah, it's on TV. The motherfuckers happen in their country right now. They showing on people.
Yeah, they won't.
Are you trying to figure like this? If the U.S. going around helping everybody, in other words, not minding their own business, You get into something you don't know nothing about, they gonna mess with you. And I'm like, just why don't you leave them alone? They come over and mess with you.
It is. That's exactly what they got fucked up.
Wow.
The niggas blew up the 2 buildings, they got fucked up.
Well, here's what I don't get. Is how our CIA and our FBI had no clue.
That's because it's an inside job.
You know why?
Where they're running? Look, they're running okay.
It's probably going to collapse. That's why I don't want anybody over there.
Is any of it still standing?
All right, guys, gotta move back.
I hear you. I hear you. Everybody back. Let's go. Back up.
Is there any of the towers left at all?
What, the planes?
Yeah.
They're going to fall down one time.
But I mean, is there anything left? Is it just like totally gone?
It's a pile of rubble.
Buildings next to it are falling?
Yeah, the building across the street's going to fall down now.
Wow. Wow.
It's not that big, though. It's a smaller building.
Uh-huh.
192 here.
Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead. It's chaos. It's chaos.
it was like early in the day. We made the decision to evacuate after the first tower fell.
And what took you to get people out?
We actually, people started on their own. They started to just kind of leave naturally, but regarding the exact time, I don't really remember what time we decided to quit.
Wow, that's crazy.
Alien feature, man. It's just insane.
What happened? It blew up again?
Guys, you gotta clear this corner.
Oh, that's the mayor's emergency center.
Fuck. Fucked up.
Which part of the compilation of that?
North.
They fucked us up.
Let's keep moving over there. Keep moving.
Guys.
Let's keep moving. Let's go.
Firefighters and police officers.
Do you know anything about the cause of the explosions that brought the two buildings down yet? Was it caused by the planes or by something else?
We
Second explosion?
we believe that it was caused by the after effects of the planes hitting the buildings. We don't know of an additional explosion after that.
Could you tell us, do you expect any further attacks on New York? Is there anything to indicate that there could be more bombs, more planes out there? I know originally there was a report that 8 planes had been hijacked, 4 have only been accounted for. What about the remaining 4? And is there any possibility that there could be bombs on the ground planted by some...
We have no specific information to that effect. Obviously, the city is now closed. The airspace around the city is closed, and we are on heightened alert.
The World Trade Center. President Bush did comment earlier. He called it an apparent terrorist attack, but then updated that to call it...
seemingly at this point quite certain. He pledges the government's full support, as would be obvious, for the victims and their families, as well as a full-scale investigation to hunt down those responsible. Let's go back to Cindy Hsu in the newsroom, who's joining us now with another update. Cindy?
Wait a second. Is this a live picture? This is a live picture. We are seeing the second World Trade Center Tower number 1 has just collapsed, ladies and gentlemen. You see it live in our picture. One World Trade Center has just collapsed. That means both World Trade Center buildings have collapsed.
If Jim Smith is with us still in Chopper 2, Jimmy, you there?
What?
Michael, we just saw that as well. The second tower, the only one that was standing, tower number 1, just we saw some kind of explosion, a lot of smoke come out at the top of the tower, and then it collapsed down onto the streets below, much like we saw the first tower just about a half hour ago.
Hours after the attack, many smaller explosions rumbled through downtown.
This was clearly, the way the structure is collapsing, this was the result of something that was planned. This is not, it's not accidental that the first tower just happened to collapse and then the second tower just happened to collapse in exactly the same way. How they accomplished this, we don't know.
We've actually had a couple of people, we're having a hard time turning around our tape right now because our truck is full of dust. That's exactly how much dust we're talking about. Our deck is not working. However, I can tell you, we had a woman sitting in our live truck earlier who was literally covered in blood from her toes to her head. She was sitting in our truck filled with dust. She says she was actually on the 82nd. In fact, we just heard another explosion. We just heard another explosion a moment ago. So we're going to stay here as long as we can, but as soon as it becomes dangerous, of course, we will move. Let me tell you a little more about this woman. She was sitting in our truck covered in blood.
Yeah, hi. I am just about between 5 and 10 blocks north of the actual site of where those two towers have come down. We're obviously having a bit of trouble right now maintaining our location because we just heard one more explosion. That's about the fourth one we've heard. The police are telling us they're either car bombs or they are simply cars that have overheated so much that they're exploding. But every time one of those happens, there's a flurry of activity, and there are more emergency vehicles that come down this road. I don't know if you can shoot past me and shoot down into that black cloud in there. That is the cloud that we were in just about 45 minutes ago or so. At the time we were there, when the first trade tower came down, my producer and I were overcome by the cloud of debris and smoke that came at us so rapidly. We had to break down a window to an apartment building. We had to break the window and go into the second door inside just to breathe. We were followed by a police officer and a security guard from the World Trade Center area. I want to show you something if I can. I'm just using a cell phone so that I can hear you because there are no cell lines that are coming out of Manhattan at the time, but see if you can zero in on this right here. This is the kind of debris that we're seeing all over the ground. If you can see the address, 1 World Trade Center, Trade Center, Trade Center, Trade Center, Trade Center.
Okay, obviously we're having some technical problems with Ashley Banfield, who is on the ground near the World Trade Center about 5 blocks away.
Of Manhattan, you saw NBC's Pat Dawson and Ashley Banfield in that portion down there in the financial district as they were being moved north on the possibility that there were so-called secondary devices or bombs located in some of the buildings down there.
6th Avenue, 8th Avenue, and all of the surrounding streets. Almost all of the movement is northbound, people trying to get away from the scene of the explosions, fearing that there are more to come.
Exclusive information, Marcia Kramer's been covering the mayor for us.
Let's go to Marcia now. Marcia?
Well, what we've learned, CBS 2 has learned that another tragedy was just barely averted by alert police officers. They confiscated an entire truckload of explosives that was being driven across the George Washington Bridge. The police officers were actually able to follow the truck across the bridge, and I'm told that they were apprehended in the Meadowlands. 2 people are under arrest, again with a truckload of explosives that was supposed to be destined for the George Washington Bridge. Two people are in custody with a truckload of explosives that could have blown up the bridge and blown up any other cars that had been on it. Channel 2 News has learned this exclusively, and we'll be continuing to investigate the story in the next hours to come. Back to you.
All right, Marcia, thank you very much. That explains some of the road shutdowns in New Jersey today. A lot of people in CBS 2's newsroom were saying, why are those roads being shut down? That may explain why that was going on.
You know, on a normal night, that would be such an incredible story. I'm numbed when I hear that. It's another thing, almost another thing in that case, and we're so thankful for officers confiscating that.
At least that is some kind of clarification, and we know that they are there. They are on the job, as the mayor says, do not be frightened. But to think that a truck full of explosives on the bridge.
On the bridge, one of the country's most famous bridges. Whitney Casey has been all day at St. Vincent's Hospital and by surprise.
Yes, if you'd asked me yesterday if this was possible, I'd have said no, at least not possible for a Middle Eastern group. But it did happen, and all the indications are that the violence has come at us from the Middle East.
A second explosion literally in the past 5 minutes apparently has precipitated entire destruction of that tower.
It's difficult. We would need to get a timeline, Dylan. As I mentioned before, remember that these planes presumably were carrying full loads of fuel. They were hijacked apparently shortly after takeoff. We presume they were carrying full loads of fuel.
Still no response from the president.
But this certainly does appear to be a second explosion.
A second explosion literally in the past 5 minutes apparently has precipitated entire destruction of that tower.
It's difficult. We would need to get a timeline, Dylan. As I mentioned before, remember that these planes presumably were carrying full loads of fuel. They were hijacked apparently shortly after takeoff. We presume they were carrying full loads of fuel.
Still no response from the president.
But this certainly does appear to be a second explosion.
The futures contract, as I mentioned, only up about $6, but the index itself has been extremely volatile, the spot gold contract. This obviously erupting many global fears beyond just here in the States and the concerns for these people.
The second tower just collapsed. They bombed the Pentagon.
The
By all
the
appearances,
World Trade Centers are no more.
By all appearances, this is maybe beyond an act of terrorism.
This, I don't think
you don't want to use the word, but
I don't think you would be making a big leap there, Dylan.
Battery Park City, we're trying to confirm that. We heard Jeff Rawson about an hour ago, a little less than an hour ago, hear an explosion as he was doing a live report. Jim, go on. We didn't.
It's just all the regular innocent folks that go about their daily work, that go about trying to figure out how am I going to pay the rent, how do I take care of my kids' dental bills, who got everything snuffed out in this blast, in this flame, in this explosion. Again.
Set up by the fire department for firefighters to take off their bunker gear and to try to get the soot out of their noses, out the powder out of their noses, out of their mouths, and off of their heads and their eyes. There are people that still, there are cars around that are covered with this thick soot. And Carol Marin from 60 Minutes was one of those inside. I'm going to hand this over to you now, Carol.
John, I can't hear, so I don't know who I'm talking to. I just came out of and around Battery Park. After the second tower went down, I was trying to make my way to a CBS crew or to try to help CBS crews if I could. And then, I don't know what it was, John, but another explosion, a rolling blast of fire, a rolling column of fire towards us. If my respect for fire and police already knew no bounds, given the danger, it now exceeds what I thought it could, because a firefighter threw me into the wall of a building, covered me with his body as the flames approached us. And another police officer in New York named Brendan Duke, wherever he is, got me through smoke that neither one of us could see more than about a foot ahead of us. There are still people in there, excuse me, I've breathed them. Fair amount of soot. The personnel, the police and the fire working in there are doing so against really dangerous odds, and they still don't know if there's something else left to explode, John.
Where were you at the time?
I was, not being a New Yorker, you'll have to help me here. I came around Stuyvesant High School, and that street is North End, and I came up and asked if anyone had seen a CBS crew. And I was directed by a firefighter who said, walk down the middle of the road because you don't know what's going to come down. At which point we heard a rumble like I've never heard before, and a firefighter ran towards me. We ran as fast as we could. I lost my shoes. I fell down. He picked me up and slammed me into a wall and covered me with him until we could make it more to safety.
Was this from the first rolling blast or the second?
John, I looked at my watch. It was about 10:44 is what my watch said. So it was after the second, I think the second tower explosion.
All right, Carol Marin from CBS 60 Minutes. I'm John Slattery, back to the studio.
Tense.
Haze everywhere. It's very, very difficult to see, but there has been a whole area has been running from the scene of this new explosion. You can see them slipping on the ash and literally having to drag each other up the street. There's an incredible amount of panic down here in downtown Manhattan as people are realizing that they really need to leave the area entirely after spending the last hour or so just watching this from afar.
Rose, stay with. Obviously, we are in the middle of the story.
And then back in New York City, the unthinkable. 2 World Trade Center, the South Tower, begins to collapse. Thousands of tons of burning steel cartwheeled into the street, flattening everything in its path. There were reports of an explosion before the tower fell, then a strange sucking sound, followed by the sound of floors collapsing.
And injured his knee. They were hurt, but well enough to talk about their ordeal.
What I saw was buses that were burnt, fire engines, trucks that were burnt, police cars that were burnt. It looked like a fireball came right up the street and took out whatever was in its path.
He suffered 2 broken ribs. Ernest Armstead's colleagues call him Dinosaur. He's an EMS worker with 30 years on the job, and now he's really seen it all. He was one of the first on the scene Tuesday and described explosions everywhere. He's hospitalized only for smoke inhalation. Here's the equipment he believes saved his life.
Whatever hit me, the big pieces of metal and everything, I had it like this, and it just, God protected me.
I looked out my window and saw people running around.
God. Oh my God. Holy shit, I just got that. Oh my God. Oh my God. Someone just jumped again. I just saw someone jump again. Oh my God.
Oh my God! Oh my God, another person! Oh my God!
Oh my God. Oh my God.
There's another person right there, man. There's like millions of people dropping down. What is it? Oh my God, another one. Is this like a bomb? It looks like that'd be a bomb. It's fucking built. The whole thing building blew up. It's a bomb, son. It's a bomb. It's definitely a bomb.
Do we know anything about the composition of that dust that flight that slow happens? Is there any asbestos or any hazardous material in that dust?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to
Mr.
that.
Mayor, there were reports of gas explosion related to this. Are you aware of that? There was a gas leak or possible explosion?
We don't believe it. We don't believe that's the case.
Mr. Mayor, can you tell us anything about where the planes come from, where the aircraft came from?
Bill Diamond reminds me that we've turned off the gas in the city buildings, just to be certain.
Can you tell us
as a precaution
where these?
These are children who go to school right across from the Twin Towers. They were evacuated during the chaos. The faces of innocence, worried and frightened.
What did you hear?
I heard a big boom,
What happened then?
and it sort of shook.
Building could come down right there. And I said, there's no way, that's a steel structure, that, you know, that's just draperies and carpets and so on. And I didn't really finish that sentence. And right up at the top, like we were invited to watch, boom, 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 down it started to come. And, you know, 8 or 10 seconds later, we all know that the tower collapsed. And it was mystifying, it was surreal, it was impossible, it was a whole bunch of things.
I don't want to be there.
Absolutely.
If we suffer a short-term setback because we need to increase the security, we won't be a paralyzed country. If we go through and say we can't move, then the terrorism will have its effect. And so the thing that we have to do is literally not panic, see that it's a disaster to some extent, and go on with business. Because if we don't, then the acts that they've now done, I mean, the World Trade Center's been targeted before, it's been hit before, and for a short term, if you recall, the city was paralyzed then. We can't allow ourselves to be paralyzed. That would just give in and create the effect they want.
They've hit the Pentagon, the White House is being evacuated.
I would assume that most structures of any moment, and most tunnels of any moment, in any place.
Take a look at that, if you would, Mr. Jaffe. That's the live picture of the Pentagon, having been hit by an attack. Again, in Washington, we're told no, that's not the Pentagon. No,
we just heard that there was another explosion in the basement or one of the lower levels of the World Trade Center.
Well, that would it would have seemed from that picture that you're right there, Dave, because we see.
From the bottom.
We don't know if that's anything that's fallout from the planes starting doing.
Yeah.
News coverage event.
Could be as a consequence of perhaps something falling from it. It certainly looks like an awful lot of smoke to be.
And we are now, for the first time, beginning to get some pictures of people in the streets.
Yeah, this is our live picture from the scene. Now we saw earlier the smoke. It's considerably less black than it was a few minutes ago, indicating that they're making some progress in putting those flames out. But now there seems to be a lot of smoke coming from the lower portion of the World Trade Center. And again, we had a report.
A new black smoke.
We had a report indicating that there was an explosion on the lower floors now.
That was really horrible. By the time Pete got to the bottom, Tower 2 had already collapsed. As he looked at where he just escaped from, you heard a crackling sound where I would never forget. You know, the building started to explode, and I knew at this point I had to run for my life, you know. And I started to run. I wasn't going to know how to run it because it was coming on so fast, so I dove behind a police car.
Thought his wife and 2 kids would never see him again, but he managed to escape without any real injuries. Today he shows off his visitor's pass that proves that he's a survivor, one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, we certainly would understand, but keep in mind that what you're seeing on your screen right now is live. This is not tape at all. This is the only remaining World Trade Center tower, the other collapsing not too long ago. Both victims of plane crashes. The tower rather that has collapsed, though we are told collapsed because of a third explosion.
Speaking at 8:30, you know, Stacy, we were talking earlier, as many of us have, that we remembered, of course, when the World Trade Center was bombed several years ago, and there was a, you know, the amount of explosives did not bring that building, those buildings, to the ground, and we saw these planes crash today and then saw these buildings fall. People were questioning exactly what happened, what could have caused it. We have a World Trade Center engineer who has a comment.
They're very strong buildings, as you remember from the blast the last time. So,
But what does it take as an engineer to do the... Oh, no.
Let's get ready.
As this man is standing here saying they're very strong buildings and that he expected them to continue to stand, we in the background see the buildings collapse, which again feeds that feeling that there was something else, that there may have been something else that brought those buildings down.
There was a lot of talk there in New York of another explosion prior to the collapse of the first building. When we talk about the World Trade Center also, we should say that we're really talking about, as my notes here show, 7 buildings, including the 2 twin towers, those huge structures, 110 stories tall. There was also a 47-story office building, which you told the viewers earlier this evening, Patrice, has also come crashing to the ground. It caught fire through all of this and finally succumbed to the fire itself, and it came crashing down. There's also an 8-story U.S. Customs office and a 22-story hotel, all in that complex. But right now, those 3 buildings, the 2 big towers, have down to the ground, and now also the 47-story office building. That's almost the size of the USX Tower.
Absolutely. I mean, this is unbelievable. We also
clear and safe. We're about to see the second tower, the North Tower, collapse, I believe, in this next shot. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a flash right before it collapsed. There was a flash of flame right before it collapsed. Are we going to see this? Yeah. Watch this flash right before it collapses. You'll see it there. And there was a flash.
We did hear 2 lesser explosions. The first one came about 10 minutes after the initial big explosion that we saw, and then there was another one, I would say, and this is a rough estimate here, about a half hour later. Now, again, those explosions, though, they were different than that original explosion. The original explosion, as we felt it and heard it and saw the huge cloud, that was quite a strong explosion. These other ones, you heard it, but then when you looked at the area, you didn't see anything that was different. You didn't see any additional clouds of smoke or any additional flames. So exactly what those 2 smaller explosions were, we don't know. I mean, it could be a variety of reasons. You could have all kinds of, you could have gas lines in there. You could have, a number of different things inside that building that would cause that. We just don't know. But we have heard a total of 3 impacts. So that's basically the situation from here, and of course we're going to continue to monitor things, and as soon as we get any more information or if anything changes here on the scene, we'll of course bring it to you as soon as we can. Back to you on the studio.
Rick Sanchez has been there throughout this morning for us. Rick, tell us where you are and what the latest is.
Well, I'm in that area, if you're familiar with this area, of where West Broadway and Hudson come together, right at Chambers. That would put us about a block and a half away from the site of where the explosion was. That area has just been evacuated because police have found what they describe as a suspicious device, and they fear that it might be something that could lead to another explosion. Obviously, there's a real sense of caution here on the part of police. I spoke with some police officials moments ago, Chris, and they told me that they have reason to believe that one of the explosions at the World Trade Center, aside from the ones that may have been caused by the impact of the plane with the building, may have been caused by a van that was parked in the building that may have had some type of explosive device in it. So their fear is that there may have been explosive device planted either in the building or in the adjacent area, and that's why they're being so cautious.
Frankie! Oh my God!
Okay, the second tower has gone down.
I'm not going any closer. They had it wired for explosives, obviously. Obviously, there was a truck in there with explosives. Here. Our lives are most important first. You agree? You got a lost a crew in there.
This is clearly a coordinated attack.
Someone just told me that the Apaches kept on to them.
Down 8%. We are also waiting for a statement out of the European Union. We had been told that EU would be issuing a statement shortly, and we will get back to you when we have that. Back to you, Mark.
We have an enormous explosion now in the remaining World Trade Tower Center. The second, I believe the North Tower is now gone as well. Yes, it is gone. Both towers of the World Trade Center have been destroyed.
Oh, my goodness.
It happened the same way. The explosion started high in the building and worked its way down. Now, of course, the entire lower section of Manhattan is a disaster zone of unbelievable proportions. I would imagine at any moment we will hear from that the National Guard is going to be brought in. I mean, this is far beyond anyone's ability, any one agency, to cope with this. Not only do we have in that building any remaining people, but it was, I am certain, full of New York City firefighters, New York City policemen, New York City rescue workers. There you see. Look, I don't understand, and I would be very anxious to hear in the future the forensics of this situation. But both towers, this is an unbelievable day. Both towers of the World Trade Center are now gone. Joining me now is Bill Griffith, my colleague.
As we try to absorb the unthinkable that has happened here, Mark.
This is a situation that...
I mean, we are to maintain some modicum of immunity to all this, but we are humans as well, and it is very, very tough to watch all of this.
The scope is beyond comprehension.
I mean, I came up here 5 minutes ago getting ready to talk about which markets may be closing around the world, but now this is just becoming
they're irrelevant. This is...
Oh, my goodness.
There you see the building imploding. Do you see what's happening?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
what would cause that? I don't know.
Well, you have, I mean, certainly the structure had been weakened by the impact, but you have to wonder if there was something else there. But we just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, but it looks like...
And at this point, I can't imagine we're getting any word anytime soon.
I don't think, I think we're safe. Here I think I'm on safe ground, Bill. I don't think this was clearly, the way the structure is collapsing, this was the result of something that was planned. This is not, it's not accidental that the first tower just happened to collapse and then the second tower just happened to collapse in exactly the same way. How they accomplished this, we don't know. But clearly this is what they wanted to accomplish.
That's what Mark...
What are we looking at now?
That's lower... Is that lower Manhattan?
Is that lower Manhattan from somewhere in New Jersey?
Perspective, perhaps?
Is this the Pentagon? No, that's not the Pentagon. Okay.
No, that's lower Manhattan.
Now you were looking at lower Manhattan.
This is from across the Hudson River here?
This is New York City.
Yes.
Completely obscured.
With
smoke, debris, and my God, the number of people in that area of the city is just...
that's Vasey and West Streets right there, and of course the World Financial Center right next door, and then you've got Tribeca leading up from there. You can't begin to say how many people are in that area, and it is now completely obscured, Mark, by the debris. Maria told us earlier when she was witnessed the first collapse that the sky grew dark, and you can only imagine, well, you can see.
Yeah, it's something that you know, I've been in this business for 35 years, and I'm not prepared to deal with this.
Well, I don't think anybody is, Mark, at this point.
I don't know.
Going to be. We're looking at the first part of it, and hopefully it will not progress from here. But one never assumed that we would see what we're seeing now, so we have no idea really what might happen next.
And if we can aid those who are trying to get control of this situation, if you are at home and if you're watching this, if you can stay at home, please do. We are, okay, you're looking at another explosion right here.
This is another explosion.
Part of the tower coming down?
Part of the Twin Tower, obviously folding.
Coming crashing down. We're watching a live...
It is right...
We're watching a live picture of this. What?
It's live. You're looking at this live. You're looking at another explosion right in the same area.
Across the bay in Brooklyn.
I'm across the bay in Brooklyn. I can see everything. We're in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. This is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like television.
Now, when you said it seemed as if the side had fallen off the building?
The side of the building has fallen out. It seemed like there was another explosion. I heard something go boom, and everything just like fell out.
Is that a third explosion now?
I don't know if it was a third explosion or was it from the fire. The fire.
No, you saw you heard the first explosion, and you saw the second plane go in.
I saw the second plane go in, and it was actual deliberate. There was no way as a pilot that you would not follow around that smoke.
Brandy, after you saw that second plane hit deliberately, as you say, the side of the World Trade Center, then you heard a third explosion?
Then I heard, not necessarily a third explosion, just 10 minutes ago, like a whole side of the building just fell out.
And I said, there's no way, that's a steel structure, that's just draperies and carpets and so on. And I didn't really finish that sentence. And right up at the top, like we were invited to watch, boom, 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 down it started to come. And 8 or 10 seconds later, we all know that the tower collapsed. And it was mystifying, it was surreal, it was impossible, it was a whole bunch of things. That's just draperies and carpets and so on. And I didn't really finish that sentence. And right up at the top, like we were invited to watch, boom, 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 down it started to come. And 8 or 10 seconds later, we all know that the tower collapsed. And it was mystifying, it was surreal, it was impossible, it was a whole bunch of things. And right up at the top, like we were invited to watch, boom, 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 down it started to come. And 8 or 10 seconds later, we all know that And it was mystifying. It was surreal. It was impossible. It was a whole bunch of things.
Maria Bartiromo, what can you tell us?
Thanks, Mark. You know, now I'm standing on the floor of the exchange, but I just came back from outside, and I am covered with soot. Basically, I was outside when that third explosion occurred, and everyone ran for their lives, basically. I went under a building. There was a little stairwell that I could go under with about 20 people, and we just stayed there. The whole area turned pitch black. And when that third explosion happens. At this point, people are in the New York Stock Exchange. People feel that this is the safest place to be right now because when everyone was outside, there was 3 explosions. So now the exchange is keeping everyone inside. I'm on the floor with about, I don't know, 100, 200 people right here, and we're just waiting. That's all I can tell you. It's pitch black outside. There's soot falling from the sky. I don't know if you could see my jacket and my shoes, but I'm completely covered in white smoke from the explosion, from that third explosion.
Maria, do you... Is that right? Okay, well, that's a possibility. We had no official confirmation. We did have people, we heard
something
in the
ignited there, though. Maybe they had, that was an incredible...
That was an incredible explosion.
And that does not cause from a...
I agree with you. I think it was the third plane, but again,
no, it could have been something that was planted.
Or a bomb planted in the building.
Joining me is Jack Kelly. Now, he is a foreign correspondent, war correspondent, and just came back from Israel. He has some information about these attacks. Jack, what can you tell us happened first in New York?
Apparently what appears to happen was that at the same time 2 planes hit the building, that the FBI most likely thinks that there was a car or truck packed with explosives underneath the buildings, which also exploded at the same time and brought both of them down.
Now, that's the first time we're hearing that. So 2 planes and explosives that were in the building, is that correct?
That is the working theory at this point. That is still unconfirmed, but that is what the FBI is going on at this point.
Now, here in Washington, can you tell us what happened with this jet? We believe it's an American Airlines jet that was going from Dulles International Airport to Los Angeles. Can you tell us about that?
At approximately 9:45, the plane hit the side of the building over there. There are confirmed deaths at this point. This is thought to be part of a coordinated attack. This is the first time that U.S. officials will actually say that this is part of a coordinated attack, and I don't think it's exactly over yet.
It is not over yet?
They don't believe it's actually over yet. They're taking precautions. Within the last couple of minutes, the White House has approved sending 2 aircraft carrier battle groups, one into the Chesapeake Bay, the other outside of the New York City area, to prepare and defend for possible future attacks.
Now, Jack, as these battleships are headed out, does this mean war?
Lawrence Eagleburger, the former Secretary of State, just told us that this is a declaration.
Is just stay in your home, stay put.
And we just received word that there was a 4th explosion at the World Trade Center. We have no idea what that was, if it was related to the first 2 explosions, secondary explosions from the first 2, or obviously other attacks.
Some sketchy information here that another explosion, a 4th explosion out the World Trade Center has gone off. One doesn't know if that's an ancillary thing because of what already happened or an additional explosion of some kind outside of that.
Rose, we hate to interrupt you. We've just been told.
A 4th explosion.
A 4th explosion.
Now in the area of the World Trade Center. Obviously, neither tower is still standing. We don't know the source of this 4th explosion. But we do have Cindy Hsu in the newsroom. Perhaps she can shed a little light.
What's so frightening at this time is that we've heard 3 explosions since both towers collapsed. I stopped another police officer. He was a New York City police officer who was working traffic in this area to ask him if he'd heard over his radio transmissions whether in fact those were car bombs, as one officer had told me, or whether he'd heard anything else. He said he thought they were just residual collapse sounds and explosions that were just from the original collapse, but we haven't had confirmation on that. The first officer that I did get the information from that was a car bomb looked as though he was an inspector, plain clothes of some sort. He had a radio as well and a cell phone. It was walking right past me down this area, and I walked with him as he was talking on the cell phone. I said, "What was it?" And he said, "Car bomb."
That last explosion was something because now there's a lot of police activity and sirens and more smoke rising from the ground, new smoke. So there was some kind of additional explosion, but I don't know what it was. Definitely. Smoke was rising from the ground. Maybe it was a federal building or something like that. Okay, sweetie, I'll call you later. Bye. 11 o'clock. Still hear continuing explosions, but...
In New York, Alan Dodd-Frank joins us on the phone in Lower Manhattan. Alan?
Aaron, just 2 or 3 minutes ago, there was yet another collapse or explosion. I'm now out of sight. A Good Samaritan has taken me in on Duane Street. But at 11:15, there was another collapse or explosion following the 10:30 collapse of the second tower. And a firefighter who rushed by us estimated that 50 stories went down. The street filled with smoke. It was like a forest fire roaring down a canyon. Now, as I think Patty Sabga and others have told you, all of Manhattan is covered, downtown Manhattan is covered with thick white ash and building material.
And then when we were outside, the second explosion happened, and there were then a series of explosions.
Not panic, see that it's a disaster to some extent, and go on with business. Because if we don't, then the acts that they've now done, I mean, the World Trade Center's been targeted before, it's been hit before, and for a short term, if you recall, the city was paralyzed then. We can't allow ourselves to be paralyzed. That would just give in and create the effect they want.
They've hit the Pentagon, the White House is being evacuated.
I would assume that most structures of any moment, and most tunnels of any moment, in any place...
Take a look at that, if you would, Mr. Jaffe. That's the live picture of the Pentagon, having been hit by an attack. Again, in Washington, we're told no, that's not the Pentagon. No,
we just heard that there was another explosion in the basement or one of the lower levels of the World Trade Center.
The pictures. A woman walked by me just
Ashley, can you hold on 1 second? We'll let you catch your breath. We want to go to Walter Perez of WNBC.
First, Marna Ringel. And Marna, you work across the street. Tell me exactly what you saw on the street, and as you looked up, what you saw, because you said you saw the second one. Am I correct?
No, I didn't see the second one. I actually was coming out of the building, and there was maybe about 30 or 40 people at the bottom of One World Financial covered in blood. I did not expect that at all, and I work for Lehman in One right here, and a gentleman that I work with was on the telephone. He said, "What was that?" I said, he thought it was thunder. I looked over, screamed, "It's a bomb," because I saw a piece of the building flow down, and I think I scared my entire floor because I can scream pretty loud, and it was pretty bad.
Now, you mentioned that you saw people on the road outside of the building. Explain that scene.
I saw, there's maybe about 30 or 40 people. There's actually, oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
We're not sure exactly what happened, but it was another explosion on the far side of one of the buildings from where we're standing. The reverberation, and another explosion on the right-hand side. Another building has gone up on the right-hand side of the road. People are now running down the street. We're not sure if that was another explosion or if that was advanced debris. Joining me also is Jim Plant. Jim, you're also a witness of what happened. Tell me exactly what you saw from your vantage point across the street.
I was just across Liberty and West here, and I saw the second plane hit the Tower 2. It looked like a 737. It hit a glancing blow. It didn't hit it direct. I don't know where the rest of the plane went, but it went in, fireball came out, and it hit lower than the first plane, which hit the upper floors.
Jim, thank you very much. At this point, as you can tell,
it does appear that there has been a third explosion in the area of the World Trade Center. There was first one plane that hit one of the Twin Towers, a second plane, each about 1 hour ago, and now a third explosion. Ashley Banfield is in Manhattan. Ashley, did you see or hear anything just moments ago?
Oh my God, Chris, this is incredible. I'm looking right at it.
What are you seeing, Ashley?
Well, I saw the explosion for one.
Could you feel it?
Everybody, I can smell it. Everyone around screamed at the time that it happened. It's just unbelievable. I can't see that it's another building. It looks almost in the same position as the second bomb or the second explosion. But it's unbelievable.
What's the scene?
What the people on the scene don't seem to realize is that one of the Twin Towers has collapsed. One of the two towers is gone.
Dan, I don't know, but when we were down about a block from the base of the World Trade Center towers about an hour ago. And there was a great deal of concern at that time from the firemen that building number 7 was going to collapse, building number 5 was in danger of collapsing, and there is so little they can do to try to fight the fires in these buildings because the fires are so massive. And so much of the buildings continue to fall into the street. When you're down there, Dan, you hear smaller secondary explosions going off every 15 or 20 minutes.
This seems to be the staging area for the fire department. We've seen hundreds of firefighters walking into the area as commuters and workers are making their way out from Broadway and down towards the financial district. By the thousands, people have been parading by foot over the Brooklyn Bridge. We're hearing a number of large booms coming from that area. We can only guess what is going on. Right on the edge here, when the winds change, the ash and dust will be coming our way. We have these respirators ready for us. But you can see the giant clouds coming out of the region.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Diana Williams with Bill Ritter. We interrupt ABC's coverage right now because we have late-breaking information about an incident at the George Washington Bridge.
Commissioner Bernard Carrick of the NYPD talking now. Let's listen in.
Thereby closing down 14th Street South in southern Manhattan. This will include or relate to all pedestrian and vehicular traffic except essential emergency vehicles and personnel shall be prohibited in the following areas: Manhattan south of 14th Street, and that will be from East River to the Hudson River. The only vehicles that will be allowed in those areas will be emergency vehicles, police, fire vehicles, National Guard, and anything authorized by the police department. There will be some vehicles in the morning that will have to get down there for deliveries of certain things that we're familiar with already. They will be allowed in, and residents, that's it. Anyone trying to violate the order will be arrested and could be found guilty of a Class B misdemeanor. I urge people to follow the order. There's no need to come into southern Manhattan tomorrow, and as a result of the order, the best thing to do is stay away.
Can you talk about this incident that came up on Channel 2 about some people coming across the GW Bridge explosives? Can you comment on that at all?
I haven't seen the report, and I haven't heard about anybody coming across the bridge with explosives. Okay.
Have you heard anything about the van on the Jersey side?
Well, I've heard basically the same thing you have. We haven't been able to confirm it yet. They weren't near the bridge, to my understanding. If it in fact did happen, we're trying to confirm it through our detective bureau.
One more question on this.
South of 14th Street, that includes all bridges and tunnel crossings south of 14th Street. Those are closed down for
any movement south of 14th Street.
And you have not heard about any explosives on the George Washington Bridge or in the Lincoln Tunnel?
Nope.
Commissioner,
thank you.
It was in Jersey near the bridge. Is that your understanding? Do you know the jurisdiction?
Well, what we heard was Port Authority police stopped a van that might have had explosives in it. We haven't been able to confirm it yet. We're working on it. When we hear something, we'll let you know.
That's on the Jersey side, right?
It's on the Jersey side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and we'll be back. So we don't have to go through this. How long? I'm hopeful.
Okay, what you have just seen there is Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick not confirming any reports at this point. Reports that we have heard that there was a truck loaded with possibly explosives near the vicinity of the George Washington Bridge, and he said that those reports have not been confirmed.
The police
they
department
are checking on it right now.
You heard John Miller tell Peter Jennings that he too had heard this from Port Authority sources. Again, Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick not confirming that anything had happened or any threat to the George Washington Bridge. We'll, of course, keep you posted. We're going to return it to ABC News now, and we'll be back in about 7 minutes.
Apparently, when we saw the second attack, it was clear,
very obvious.
It seemed clear it was a terrorist attack. Since that time, we know that another bomb was set off at the World Trade Center, and if you are just tuning in, you will see there is no more World Trade Center. Both towers have collapsed.
Another decision by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, no planes are going to be allowed to take off from any airport in this entire country. All planes, no planes will be taking off today. They have made a decision to stop all air traffic control, all air traffic.
Marsha, we got to interrupt you. We just saw live from Chopper 2 yet another explosion. Did anybody, Janine, what did you see? You saw, was it an airplane or was it a...
It looked like part of the building, if not most of the top, collapsed, and all the debris from the building was falling down towards the ground.
Look at the smoke. Look at the smoke. This is
the whole building. Did it collapse?
Do we have Jim Smith available on microphone from Chopper 2 as he takes these pictures? Jim?
Yes, I am here, Michael.
Jim, tell us what's happening out there.
Oh my
We just
gosh.
witnessed some kind of secondary follow-up explosion on the World Trade Center #2, the one that is on the south, that is difficult to make out through the debris and smoke, but it does appear that a portion, the top portion of the building, has collapsed down to the streets below.
The second building collapsed. Came back 20 minutes later, looking like a Three Stooges movie covered in plaster. I swear to God. But you got a good thing, man. Just a good shirt. Then we look back there. Whoa, 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 whoa!
Al Jones just saw building #7 go down at the World Trade Center. It's collapsed down.
You know, we've seen so much today with the collapse of #1 and #2. Folks standing here on the corner of Leonard Street and West Broadway. We were just sitting here watching all the smoke pouring up from #7. #7 is the kind of reddish-brown building that's towards the north end of the complex. And although we really couldn't see much damage on it, there was smoke pouring out of it here for hours. And folks just kind of standing around milling about it. And then I was watching. I just could tell from the reaction of the crowd what had happened, because I'd heard it already before. The gas, the screams, people immediately turning and starting to run, even though we're probably a dozen blocks from the center itself. People starting to run away from the scene, and I turned in time to see what looked like a skyscraper implosion. Looked like it had been done by a demolition crew. The whole thing just collapsing down on itself, and another big, huge plume of gray and white smoke shooting up into the air, and then more of the smoke billowing up the street here. So that's #1, #2, and now #7 that have come down from this explosion, and folks just simply can't believe it.
Well, Al, I didn't realize because the other towers are so big, but #7 is 47 story. That was a huge building in its own right.
Right. It was the one that kind of was dwarfed by the other two. It was kind of a reddish brown, and it more or less ran east and west. It was a long, thin building, but it had been damaged, and it's been on fire for hours, and the smoke just seemed to intensify. But we really couldn't see a lot of damage from this angle, from the north side of the structures. That's why everybody was so surprised when all of a sudden it just fell.
Now, the other thing, too, I presume it had been burning for some time. As you indicated, there was nobody inside, and we hope no danger to anybody when it went down.
Well, that's the thing, is that when #2 went down, I don't think, and I know I'll put myself in that group, I never thought these things would fall down. I mean, we were watching them. You could see them burning. A lot of it was damaged. There was fire coming out of the top, but I just never for the life of me thought that these huge buildings that have been here so long would actually just fall. And that's what happened. They just crumbled.
Well, as reporters, you kind of run to the scene, and that's what happened with some of the firefighters and police, too. They ran to the scene, and, of course, with devastating results.
And that's what the thing is, with all the triage that's set up around that area, and all the people that were being treated, and all the emergency personnel that are close to it, you only hope that they were far enough back so that when this came down, that they were all out of harm's way.
Because, as you suggested, we never thought they would go down.
No, the gasp from the crowd here was all you needed to know that this just shocked everybody again.
That is 10-10 reporter Al Jones with the news and giving us that description of World Trade Center building #7 going down, a 47-story building. That, too, is gone. Al Jones.
By surprise.
Yes, if you'd asked me yesterday if this was possible, I'd have said no, at least not possible for a Middle Eastern group. But it did happen, and all the indications are that the violence has come at us from the Middle East.